Hello everybody, this is Art by Yegor. I'm Yegor and I'm a visual artist. And I want to present to you a piece that I did back in, May. Yes, May of 2024, this year. This is raw. What do you think? Now the way that I paint, as I've said before, there's always a story behind what you are seeing on the canvas here, behind all that layers of paint, behind the fluorescence and the fantastic visuals. This is not just coming out of my head, this is coming out of visions, things that are seen and things that are real, albeit on a higher level. And the story here is two stories. One is much simpler than the other. Have you ever woken up in the middle of the night and felt your entire body quaking and shaking, as if there's an earthquake happening almost? It feels like it's coming from without your body, not from within. Well, that's happened to me on numerous occasions in my life. I would wake up in the middle of the night from this quaking. Everyone will be dead asleep. I jolt up and immediately run into my son's bedroom and pick him up and try to bring him to bed with us. And the reason was that I thought there was an earthquake happening. But there was no earthquake. Nobody could feel it except I could. So what was happening? My body was physically quaking. I could feel it. And I didn't know what to make of it until earlier this year I figured out. Do you know when you put together two tones of sound and one is just slightly higher or lower pitch than the other? You get an interference pattern that creates a low frequency oscillation. Whoom, 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 whoom kind of feeling, right? That happens from deharmonization to objects that are not vibrating at the same harmonic frequency anymore. So in my case, what were those two objects? They were the body and the spirit. My spirit, as I was going to sleep into the dream world, its vibration would accelerate and increase while my chemical body's composition stayed the same. And I couldn't take my chemical body with me where I was going in spirit, so I had to desynchronize. And I would catch myself in a moment of lucidity going through this desynchronization process, and it would feel like a physical quaking, yet nothing was shaking. Not even my body was moving, but I could swear by everything that is holy under the sun that there was a physical vibration happening. It would whoa, 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 kind of accelerate, and I would either wake up or fade into sleep and not remember anything past that point. Until this. So one night when I was doing a solo trip on I felt this happen to me. I was coming up pretty hard, retreated to my bedroom, laid down, and I felt this desynchronization start to happen. My body started to vibrate, and at that point I kind of understood what was happening, so I went along with it. And it was quite an amazing experience because I managed to pop my head out from beyond the veil of forgetfulness, and it felt like this. I did my best to try to illustrate it. What happened is I popped my head out far enough that it came out of the veil around the eye level. And I could physically feel this as an intense pressure, as if someone had tied a bandana really tightly around the side of my head and pulled it tight. Or as if I was popping my head through a rubbery kind of sphincter of sorts, like Jim Carrey in that one movie. And once I peeked through, I saw the dream that I had that night, that I had forgotten already when I woke up, but fully I returned back into the dream. I peeked through beyond the veil and I ended up exactly where I left off in the dream when I woke up that morning. And that completely blew my mind because that was the first time that I actually maintained lucidity while falling asleep. And not just falling asleep, but going out of body. I stayed with my spirit instead of with my body and unconsciousness. And I could feel the entire process of the vibration increasing and popping through on the other side and observing the dream world. It was as if the dream world was frozen in the exact moment that I left it. And I could literally look around. I felt like I had stepped up and out of the water, which is what I'm trying to illustrate here. The sleeping man, you could see his kind of silhouette down here, but he comes out of the water up here, and his skin is blue and it's melting away. Through this experience, I began to understand that the chemical body that we inhabit here on Earth, this is the veil. This is the veil of forgetfulness that we all wear like a costume. And we all play pretend actors in this stage that is the Earth. And when we come out of here, we realize who we really are. We drop and melt away our ego, which is our persona that we put on, and we come out as the true being that we are. But is that really the true being, or are there more and more layers to it? And that experience, I got really afraid that if I continued further out, that I would detach from my body. And I knew of the crimson cord that runs from the spirit down to the navel of the chemical body. I knew that I would not detach, but my faith was not enough. I was so afraid that I couldn't proceed out and have a full, complete out-of-body experience, yet I still peeked above the veil. And after that, actually during the experience, I met Jesus Christ himself, and we had an interesting conversation about things that are pertinent to my life that are also quite personal, and I would not like to get into. But let me just say this, that Jesus is a bro, and he's one of us. He's a straight chiller, cool dude. I felt just brotherly understanding and warmth and kind of guidance, as if I had met an older brother. That was what the experience was like. He wasn't judging me. He was letting me judge myself and kind of asking me pertinent questions, pointing me in the direction. You know what? Let's have a candid moment. Let's get in there. And I grew up in a Christian background. So for me, I got married very early because I believed that it was the absolute right thing to do. When you meet somebody you love, you commit yourself fully to them so that you could share a life together and you get married. And I thought I had it all figured out at the ripe old age of 23 years old. That marriage did not work out, but in the end, the breakup of this marriage led me to discover myself and to find my current girlfriend, who is truly the love of my life. So, in meeting Jesus when I was out of here, I started to judge myself because one of the things that came up during our conversation was I asked him, he said to me, do I accept the Spirit of Christ? And disclaimer, this is not going to be a Christian rant. It just comes from an understanding of previous Christian experience for me. He said, do you accept the Spirit of Christ as your Lord and Savior? And I said, well, yeah, I want to, but I feel like there's something preventing me from doing it. It's like, what is it? So, do I have to return with my ex-wife and finish that vow? And then he asked me a question. Well, you made a promise, didn't you? Like, yeah, I made a promise and I kept the promise. And I tried to keep the promise, but I can't. I said, who did you make the promise to? I said, well, I made it to God. Right? Then Jesus comes back with me. Well, who is God? And then it clicked, because I had already at this point figured things out. I'm God. You're God. Every person here is an incarnation of the one infinite creator. Jesus is God. So he said, who did you make the promise to? Myself. Yes. So who do you need forgiveness from in order to move forward? It's like, yeah, I need to forgive myself. It's like, bingo, exactly. And he didn't tell me that I have to return with my ex-wife to finish the vow, or he didn't say that I should continue with my relationship with Lrarn at that time. It didn't matter to me. What mattered to him, it didn't matter to him. What mattered to Jesus was that I had understood that the forgiveness comes from within. When you ask God for forgiveness, you have to ask yourself for forgiveness. You have to forgive yourself. Self-forgiveness is powerful. And then, because of my lack of self-forgiveness, it created doubt, and that doubt prevented me from fully coming out of the water and having a full out-of-body experience in the fourth density and beyond. This is the bottom right corner of that painting. That is story number one. The second story is just as profound, and these two stories are molded together into the same painting because they have a similar theme. On another trip, with Lrarn this time, we took a bit of mushrooms and had a closed eye moment. I closed my eyes, lying down on the bed, and boom, I come out through the veil, rocket through it. I have the whole experience of the shakes, but it happened so quick. Boom, rocket out of it, and end up observing not quite this, but what I see at first is just that eye and a bit of the black and white plumes around it. That was surprising as fuck. But not for me, for the being that I had met. It's like I'm suddenly hovering in space and there's this big giant vertical eyeball looking at me. Its pupil constricts a bit and then widens, signifying, what the heck is this guy doing here? It was shocked to see me as I was to see it. So I'm like, sup? And this being goes, greetings. I ask it, I don't know how I got here. I don't know what I'm doing here. But I think my time here is limited. How can I come back to this exact same spot and see you again? And the being is kind of taken aback and it says, well, just stop breathing. And at that point, I didn't quite figure out what it meant. I thought the being was telling me, oh, you can only come here if you're dead. Kill yourself. Like, it's trying to trick me to take my own life into being with it. Like, no way, I'm not going to get tricked. I wasn't born yesterday. You stop breathing, right? And I look right at it like this. You stop breathing. Oh, you can't, because everything is an oscillation of energy. That's how everything is created. It's the creation pattern, the inward and outward flowing that we refer to as breath. There's no air to not breathe here, but you can't stop breathing because you're always oscillating in and out, moving back and forth. This is how energy works. And I could tell that whatever this was at the time, I didn't know, was pretty happy with my answer. And it's like, whoa, this is not just some random Joe Normie who took a bit of shrooms and is flying, has no idea where he is. Let's show him some stuff. So this entity kind of sucked me into itself, and suddenly I was inside of it. And it's no longer just an eyeball with a couple of scraggly wings. Suddenly I'm seeing this times 100 million billion fulfillion times. It felt like one large, extremely long serpent that was intertwining within itself in these geometric patterns that were spherical and radiating out from the center and weaving and bobbing and just braiding itself into itself. And its scales were made of eyes, and it had these plumes of black and white feathers around the outer perimeter and between the eyes. And this illustration is, while being pretty impressive, it doesn't do it nearly enough justice of just how grandiose and majestic this being was. It was truly a sight to behold. And I beheld it for as long as I could, taking in every detail. It was intense while at the same time being not evil. I wouldn't say it was aligned with good or evil. It was just is. It accepted every being. It was part of every being. Had this grand central eye and surrounded by other eyes. Kind of like a group consciousness in a way. And that vision was vivid. Vivid as fuck. It was something that I could never forget. Came out of it, and I sketched it out the following day. And basically the sketch was like this. And I showed a couple of people my sketch, and they said, "Whoa, that's interesting. How does stuff like this come out of your head?" And I didn't know what to say at the time, but my response now is, it doesn't come out of my head. It doesn't come out of my asshole. It comes out of my third eye. I go places and I see things, and then I just draw what I see. I didn't invent this. This exists out there. On what level? I don't know, but it's not on the 3D level. It's not a third density being. And my belief that it is a sixth density being. And I'm going to tell you why I think so. So back in the 80s, a group of what are essentially psychonauts were exploring consciousness and channeling. And there were a bunch of guys trying to channel beings from beyond the veil. And things weren't working out too well until they came across a woman and put her into a meditative state. And this woman turned out to be the perfect channel for a being called Ra at the time. And she started bringing in some extremely interesting information that was delivered her through a very narrow band channel. It had to be very narrow band of consciousness coming into her mind in order to be able to truly explain the depth and profundity of the material that she was about to produce. Basically, a being known as Ra, a group consciousness from 6th density Venus, if that makes any sense to you, it will in a moment, would talk through her, and the guys would record it on a magnetophone, a little whatever technology they had back in the 80s, and later they transcribed it into 5 volumes of the book's called The Raw Material, or The Law of One. So this raw material talked about very intricate details of how the universe beyond our 3rd density works, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and beyond. The biggest thing that it would focus on is the choice that we have in the 3D, and the fact that all is one in a way. That is the law of one, that all things in the end converge as the one thing, the one infinite creator. And this being would begin every conversation with the channel as, "I greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator." Right? It would always be a greeting in the name of the one infinite creator. And I didn't know that this was the being that I was talking to and painting at the time. Soon after I had the encounter with the being, I started painting it. And as I would paint it, I would synchronize with the vibration of whatever it is that I was painting. And that would open me up to be a channel for the energy to come through, because I was requesting it as well. Talk to me. Tell me how you want to be painted. This is your portrait, not mine. And the entity totally did, and totally talked to me as I was painting the eyes. I was putting so much effort and love into the eyes, trying to make these, not saying how many eyes there are, I know the number, it's a big number. I was putting love into each and every one of them as best as I could, and I'll feel the love back. And I started sensing inside my head downloads of information like psychic communication, telepathy. And what freaked me out is I heard the name Lucifer. And I freaked the fuck out, because as a former Christian, that's the devil right there. it took me aback, completely by surprise. And I kind of had to do a double take and stop painting for a little bit while I figure out what the fuck I just ran into. Because my former Christian background was telling me that Lucifer is evil and you should never ever have any communications with Lucifer. You should have nothing to do with that being at all. Yet, from my experience of the being when I was there, it wasn't evil. It was intense. A really intense eyeball staring straight through you like a laser beam, but it was not evil. And that kind of sent me down a path of realizing that Lucifer and Satan, not the same entity at all. The only reason that Christians may even begin to consider that is, oh, Lucifer, bringer of light, how far hast thou fallen? I don't know the exact verse. Paraphrasing it here, I'll put it up on the screen. That is the only one time that Lucifer is ever even mentioned in the Bible. And in fact, it's referring to an ancient king, not even the Lucifer that we think of as the devil. But think about it. Lucifer is the bringer of light, the bringer of wisdom, truth, knowledge. How is that a bad thing? Do we want to be kept stupid and in the dark, not knowing what is happening around us, relying strictly on our faith to move forward? Thus says every pastor. But is that the correct way? Faith without works is blind, perhaps. This is the type of work. So the faith here led me to see this being. But the seeing the being and painting the painting after is a work. Lucifer is not evil. This is going to ruffle some Christian feathers like crazy, but I'd say go do your own research. I've done mine. Lucifer and the devil are not the same guy. So, enough of this religious stuff. I'm completely non-religious. I'm spiritual, but I have since left the church for many a good reason that I could get into at another time. I met Lucifer. That doesn't make me evil. That doesn't make me a bad guy. In fact, my connection with reality has deepened since then because I'm gaining more knowledge. What could be evil about just pure knowledge is if it is not tempered by love. And that is the difference between of service to self and service to other self. The two paths talked about in the law of one. Service to self is when you love yourself above all else. So you do things strictly for the self. You're constantly taking from your environment and bringing and taking energy from other beings and sucking it into yourself like a vampire, like a narcissist. That is a service to self path. There's a service to other self path. It's when you're taking the love that you have infinitely abundantly within your heart and you spread it and you give it to other people. And thus you are multiplying the love around you. That is a service to other self path. That's the difference between in Christians going to hell or going to heaven. Same place, just different manifestations of it. And as you proceed down the service to self or service to other self path, you polarize yourself and you increase in density. You go up the different levels that are traditionally in spirituality known as dimensions, but they are actually referred to as densities in the law of one material. Go to the fourth, where you focus much more on the heart center, the love aspect. And if you are taking the service to self path, you're much more focused on the self love. Like love yourself at the expense of everything else. Nothing else matters. Do not love anything that is outside. Only love what is coming into yourself. And the service to other self path being the complete opposite. You love what is outside equally as much as you love yourself and share your energy. Then the fifth density, that's the place where you reach the level of wisdom. So you're maxed out on love in a way, and you start learning the wisdom teaching. So you're understanding how the intricacies and the machinery of the universe, how the mathematics of it all works, on all of the different physical, metaphysical levels. And that path, you could continue down the service to self and service to other self. But when you get to the sixth density, It is the density of love and light, wisdom and love together. And at that point, the two paths have to merge. And the service to self entity realizes that it cannot love itself anymore because everything that is outside of it is also an expression of itself, because the fifth density entity is still an expression of the one infinite creator that is in all and each and every being. So at fifth density, a being either becomes so polarized in the service to self path that they cannot continue forward and they essentially dissolve, or they realign themselves as service to others, and then they may continue the ascent up through the sixth density and beyond until they eventually return to the one infinite creator. So this is the raw material. Another trip I had after I had started painting this painting already, the one that I did with Lrarn, I was thinking of getting more information about this painting in a state where I'm more receptive, my mind is more open. So I kind of meditated on the word Lucifer, a few feet away from Lrarn. And she happened to have her eyes closed at the time. And she was also in the same state that I was. And she saw Lucifer in her eyes. She saw this. And it shocked her because she said it looks exactly like what you were painting, except the eye was more red, more intense for her. Interesting, right? But at the same time that she saw that, I heard inside my head the words, "I greet you in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. This vessel is adequate for teach learning." Oh my God, chills going up my spine right now already as I recall this. If you've read The Law of One Material, that is exactly how Ra communicates. And that is what I heard in my head. So immediately I made the connection that Ra is Lucifer. And the interesting thing about that, another correlation that happened, Ra in the Law of One Material states that they are a collective group consciousness, a collective consciousness from the sixth density of the sphere that we know as Venus here on our planet Earth. So Venusian sixth density being that doesn't exist in the 3D, exists in the 6D, which is why we can't see anything of the sort with our probes and telescopes. That kind of made a correlation for me, right? Lucifer, the light bringer, the morning star. Venus, Ra, the first light. So Ra, I'm coming to understand, was not the sun god. Perhaps they got it wrong in Egyptology. I mean, this is a large statement to make without any backing facts except intuition, but Ra was not the big light. Ra is the first light, the morning star, the light of the dawn. Ra. Lucifer, same being. And if you imagine the astronomical and astrological symbol for Venus, it is a circle with a square cross under it. Now have a look at this. That was a pretty cool revelation, right? Understanding why that symbol was chosen. Look here. Circle. Cross. That symbol was not chosen by accident. It doesn't just represent the female reproductive system, the uterus. What it represents is a pictogram of the being that hails from Venus, which is Lucifer, Ra. And look at the way that the snakes have black and white plumes. The serpents are plumed. The plumed serpent. Quetzalcoatl, right? Quetzalcoatl was the plumed serpent that came out of the heavens in the form of a man. in the Aztec tradition and gave the people wisdom and knowledge. Kaboom, right there. And I saw that exact same being. And I believe that more people are starting to see that exact same being, because I was at a festival, no, not festival, a little rooftop party, doing live painting as a featured artist. And one of the people there in the audience that saw my painting came up to me and said, whoever painted that, I need to shake that guy's hand immediately and get to know him, because I saw that being and it looks exactly like that. So I know at least 2 other people that I have talked to have seen this exact being. It's not just myself, there's a correlation here. Lucifer is coming down, the light bringer. The light is coming to us, and we are able to tap into that light and see the light and gain the knowledge and the wisdom that we need to move forward into the next evolution of Earth. This is huge. Another kind of correlation that I had is I speak Spanish, and I went to a Flow Fest, Flow Jam, and I had my painting on display. Actually, it was at the time that I was painting this one. I had gathered a small group of fans around me, just kind of hanging out and observing the art and enjoying the company. And one of the guys in Spanish said, "Hijo de puta, este es un ángel bíblico," which means, holy crap, this is a biblical angel. Like, yeah, absolutely right. What are the biblical angel descriptions? One of them, right? Descriptions of the thrones in particular. It is one central eye with rings that have thousands of eyes upon them, circling each other. Boom. That right there is a representation of a throne's angel. A throne's angel, under the hierarchy of angels, is the highest kind of angel that's directly below God in that particular angelic theology. And yes, I believe this to be one of the better depictions in the world of a thrones type of angel. So this painting, because of all these things, I don't know if I should sell it. It is for sale at this point, but maybe I should just sell prints of it, and this could be a museum piece, because in a way, it goes beyond just a pretty picture to look at. This is a postcard from the other side, right? And I feel like when people see this and you have a good look at it, especially when you see it in person, it integrates something into your brain. There's like a new chip installed, a new gateway, a new neural pathway is created that will allow you to get in touch with this being as well the next time you see it, because you've seen the imagery. The imagery is like a calling card. It's a aid in manifestation, an aid in assisting the communication with this particular being. I believe this painting to be quite a holy painting, a very pivotal spiritual piece, because of the journey that I took with it and the help that it has given a few other people already. This one needs to be seen. This is my important piece, probably my most important piece that I have done to date, communicating the mysteries of the beyond, ineffable. Now I need to have a conversation about that as well. What I do in my free time is my business. Nobody's business but mine. I've had questions asked me. How much do you need to take in order to see something like this? And I have to be quite real here. This was seen on a very low dose of something. And if you're not seeing something on a low dose, dosing higher is not necessarily going to help you see it, because it just means that your instrument is not tuned properly. Your body is detuned and not in the right spot, mentally and physically. This is not a judgment on you. This simply means that you have a lot of inner work that still needs to be done. And a lot of that shadow work can be cleared away when you actually integrate your trips. So I'm not calling myself holy or superhuman or anything of the sort. I'm saying that honestly and humbly, leading up to me doing this painting here, I was on a roll. I was going to the gym, I was taking care of my body, and I was in a very good place mentally and spiritually for this being to present to me. If you're not seeing this on a high dose, it's not that you need to dose even more. It's that you need to clean up your own act. Get a grip of your nutrition. Get a grip of your physical, chemical body and tune it like a fine tuning fork to be able to augment it. Hit the tuning fork with a hammer with something like mushrooms or something else in order for it to vibrate at the right pitch and frequency, a very narrow band of communication that will happen with this entity or a plethora of other entities that exist out there beyond our 3D world and understanding. So this is my reminder, just when you do these things, do so safely and not out of desperation. Do not be desperate to contact an entity. Sure, it's a 6th density being. To you, maybe a celebrity, but to itself, it's just another bro hovering in the multitude of multitudes. That's my little encouragement for you here. There is more to life. There is more that exists beyond our 3rd density world, which is why psychonauts are important people, bringing in information from the beyond, postcards of what we've seen. If you're an artist, I encourage you to paint what you see in your head, because that's coming from somewhere beyond, more likely than not. Everything exists. Your imagination is real. Your imagination is simply seeing real things. People need to see this. So if you have something that you've seen that you want to share, pick up a brush and paint it, write a song about it, write an essay about it. This stuff needs to be known. It needs to be brought into this world right now, which is why we're getting it. We're on the verge of something new and amazing, a beautiful new world, and it's going to be artists of all kinds that really help usher it in. It's not going to come from the government. It's going to come from the hearts of the people. We're in the second coming of Christ right now. And the second coming of Christ doesn't look like Jesus H. Christ riding a disco cloud coming down from the heavens playing a trumpet with a gaggle of angels wooing around him. Fuck no. The second coming of Christ comes from the Christ consciousness. It comes from within, from your heart. And it pours outward. It's not an external thing coming to you. It is you coming to the world in ways such as this. This is raw. Took me approximately 120 hours. UV reactive acrylic on canvas. Looks absolutely stunning. 3x4 feet. You gotta see it in person. For real. It is a little slice of the being that has communicated through the raw material, the law of one. It is the Lucifer, it is the plumed serpent. And it is right here. I greet you in the name of the one infinite creator. Sending you love. Because you and I are the same being. And I love you. I hope you know that. Wishing you a fantastic day. Thank you for listening and hearing what I have to say about this unique and amazing piece. Ciao.